Joel Miller.
Who are you?
Guess.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Hello and welcome to another DualShockers discussion video. This time, finally, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us. We're going to be talking about the game. We're going to be talking about the story, the mechanics, everything, including the ending at the end, hopefully. Hopefully we can hold our spoilers to the end. But joining with me, I of course have the illustrious Logan Moore, who's in the far corner over there.
Hi, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here, Logan.
Yeah, no problem, of course.
Of course. Underneath you, of course, we have Michael Ruiz. The final appearance? Question mark?
No, probably not.
Okay.
Probably
I'll
not.
be back next week.
Yeah, I quit. For those who don't know. But yes, I am here to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 and to be sad. So.
All right. Well, you come to the right place. Of course. And underneath me, I, of course, have the reviewer of The Last of Us review for DualShockers, who I lend my voice to for the video. I'm so happy to have Ryan. I've never said your last name out loud. Can you please say it for me?
Meitzler.
Meitzler. I have Ryan Meitzler.
And then Joel said to Ellie, Ellie, we are The Last of Us, Part 2.
It's a great way to open the game.
100%. I didn't expect that, to be honest. Yeah, I didn't expect that one bit. And of course, for the first time that I've ever podcast or / been in a video with, making his first, I believe, DualShockers debut on a video, not a podcast. I'm sure you've been invited to the podcast before I was. Anyways, thank you, Alex O'Neill. Hello, hey, clap, everyone. He's here, his little baby. Look at his face. He's in the middle of us.
I'm here.
He's the middle of us.
Baby. I'm in the middle.
Hello, BB. This is actually a Death Stranding discussion.
Oh, tricked.
No.
You've been tricked, son.
I'm actually you. I am you. BB is you. But there's also another BB. Spoilers for Death Stranding.
Already kicking it off with the spoilers. Great. Wonderful. Well, guys. All right. Ryan, I'm going to speak with you first because you're the one that obviously started everything with the review. How long did it take you actually to complete The Last of Us?
It took me about 20 hours, so maybe a little bit longer than that. Like, okay. I was like rushing through it pretty much to try and get through it. Yeah. Sure.
And in terms of that time, obviously, like, tell me your experiences. What was everything going on when you were playing Last of Us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting with this, like, obviously, since it's like such a story-driven experience that, like, you know, that's sort of and, you know, because, like, I love the original game, and I think that this game, for the most part, like, is a really solid follow-up to that game, and, you know, like, I think a lot of other people have, you know, in my review and other reviews have mentioned that this feels like really, like, sort of a less like The Last of Us 2 and more like a complementary part of the experience, because it's like it really feels like it's more of a continuation of the story rather than just like, okay, here's the first game with some improvements and things like that, where it like pretty directly touches on a lot of the things that happened in the first game. And, you know, I think playing through the game, you'll see how this game kind of makes you see the first game differently. I think that was like one of the most interesting parts of playing through The Last of Us Part 2 and what I really liked about it. But I think, overall, like I ended up giving it a 9 out of 10 for my review. You know, and I was very kind of conflicted, I think, of when I was playing this game, because it's like, it's one of the most like polished, like incredible games I think that have come out of this generation. But I think playing through it, I was acknowledging sort of the storytelling aspects of the game that I found a little like not bad by any means or anything like that. But like, I think there's some dissonance between the storytelling and what you're doing in the game that I think was one of the bigger parts of the game that I sort of was trying to figure out, you know, as I was playing it.
Okay, for sure.
Ryan, yeah. I messaged you like a week before this came out, and I was like, hey, you sure you still want to review the game or whatever? Just because like we get games later from we have to get games from Sony on launch day because we don't work with them. So I messaged you. I was like, "Hey, you sure you want to review it? If not, I can jump in and do it." And you're like, "No, I'll do it." And then once I actually started playing the game, I was like, "Thank God I am not reviewing this one." It was one of those games where it was like there was so much to say, and I didn't even know where I would start with like a written review about the game. And I was just like very glad that I'm sitting this one out after having to agonize over the same situation of what the heck am I supposed to say about Death Stranding, which was the last review that I really was difficult to put words to.
Yeah, I think I found myself in like a similar situation with this game where it was just like because of, just the sort of like, especially in the weeks leading up to the game, like all like the, quote unquote controversy that arose around the game because of people, the leaks and everything that happened in April, and then the internet having all this discourse about the what was spoiled and what they were unhappy with the direction of the game. And then obviously the coronavirus pandemic where, the game takes place in a pandemic and you go to a quarantine zone in Seattle, and it's like, as you're playing, you're like, oh, this feels a little close to home right now. So
this is what all coffee shops look like now.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there were definitely a lot of parts of the game that were like pretty, it was just, there were a lot of things around the game, I think, that I was trying to take into consideration when I was reviewing it. But I think ultimately I was trying to look at it, just as like, even like trying to think of myself being like, if I had played this, 3 months before the pandemic or whatever, and like looking at it sort of as its own work and what it's trying to say and what it's trying to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on to Michael Ruiz. I'm just going to go crazy on this. I'm just picking whoever. Michael.
Yeah.
What were some of your thoughts when you were playing the game? I know we talked a little bit in our own private chats.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely came in kind of like in the same way that like a lot of people were. Like, I didn't really think like The Last of Us originally needed a sequel at all. Like, it was something that I think ended like really well, and it is one of my favorite games ever. So like coming into this, I was like, okay, well let's see how this pans out. Let's see if it could actually like, follow it up. And overall, I think it definitely did. I think I posted like some dumb tweet about like it being like it is one of my favorite games, I think.
I mean, you did change your name to what, like the Jesse Stan account?
Yeah, Jesse is Jesse's the best character in video games ever created. Maybe we could get into that later.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there's no other character that could actually top Jesse. He's actually number one. And not even Fox McCloud can do that. And that's a lot. That's a lot coming from me.
Wait, you're saying that Jesse, unknown last name, is better than Fox McCloud?
Unknown last name.
Yes, Jesse, unknown last name. The dude with the best mullet in the business is much better than Fox McCloud, I think.
Big words coming from Mike.
Yeah. But yeah, I really, really liked it. I think on like a mechanical level, because the one thing that I really did not like about The Last of Us, and really just Naughty Dog games in general, like I've always hated like kind of playing them. I thought the mechanics were always like kind of bad. Like the shooting mechanics were never great, especially like since I play a whole lot of shooting games. It's like I play a lot of Siege, so I play a whole lot of shooting games.
Just because you're like a newly like PC player is like all precision.
I guess, but I was playing that on Xbox before too. But yeah, so I mean, I never really liked it, and playing this, I think they improved like their gameplay like tenfold. I think it's like it plays so much better. A lot of people were like debating on which one's a better stealth game between like Metal Gear Solid 5 and this, like in a whole bunch of things. I think
that's a silly comparison, but I do see the slight comparison. But yeah.
I don't know.
I did when I was playing it. I was kind of thinking Metal Gear a little bit. Like again, it's like it's slightly different context, and it's like Metal Gear is like way more open and everything. But I did like sort of like especially like when like you're going prone, you're sneaking around, and like I think how they made the AI feel so much more sort of like lifelike and trying to personify these people. Like I think like Metal Gear did kind of come to mind when I was playing it.
I just got disconnected when Ellie just summoned like a decoy of her like in the middle of this like disappointed street, and then like a robot hand punch people. I don't know.
And you can go under a horse and tell it to poop on you. That's another good part.
That's a really great part. Love that part.
But overall I thought it was really great, and that's even like storytelling too. I thought they really stuck the landing. I thought there's definitely some like pacing issues, I think, in terms of like the story, but I really liked Ellie's story. I really, really like Abby's story, which I guess we'll also get into that. Spoilers.
Who?
Yes. Abby.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, I thought it was great.
Everybody knows who Abby is at this point. I would hope. I would think.
Yeah.
Logan, since you're talking about Abby, go ahead. So what was your thoughts?
I like the game a lot. Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I don't. This year's not been super strong so far, at least for me. Like the other big releases of this year, like your Animal Crossings and your Final Fantasies, don't jive with me too much. Doom's probably been the biggest standout thing that's come out this year so far, other than this game for me. So yeah, this was. I very much enjoyed it. It's weird because like I've done like multiple conversations about this game already. One with Alex already. Me and him talked about it. I'm still very conflicted. I'm still just like I continue to ruminate on this game like 10 days after I beat it, and there's just like still new thoughts popping in my head about it. I very much like it though. Like I'm very positive on it, but there's still a lot to dissect, I feel like, and a lot to break down, especially when it comes to the story and its themes. And I don't know, there's just a lot of things going on in this game, and every time I think that maybe one aspect of the game didn't work for me, I kind of changed my mind. I realized that I liked it maybe more than I initially did, and I see why they made certain decisions that they did. Yeah, stuff like that. I don't know. There's just a ton to dissect and break down. I guess coming off the back of the gameplay stuff, I don't know. Like the gameplay is still fine for me. I like there's like a bunch of small tweaks they made throughout this game that I enjoyed. Like being able to go prone is obviously great, and I like how the engagements are built out more vertically rather than so like kind of. Well, there was a lot of like tight corridors in the last game. I felt like that you would run into, or just be like a hall full of like clickers or something like that, or you're in a hotel full of hunters, things like that. I like that this game expanded the scope a little bit more. I thought it worked well sometimes. I would say I got pretty tired of it by the end of the game, but I think it's largely a net positive. But it feels like a half step up rather than a full one, in my opinion. Compared to the last game.
Sure. The two things you're just talking about, the verticality of the thing, like those two specific areas where I'm like, yes, that works, and it's the TV station and the mall. Where the mall is like where you get to steal the boat.
Yeah,
that was cool because I've seen so many fun things of people jumping from certain things and landing on people, or there's so many gifs right now of like people playing pro Last of Us who have like Molotov sliding and stuff like that.
Last of Us.
It's insane.
No scopes.
I just saw the one where apparently if you're like swinging on a rope, you can jump off and do like a jump execution on someone, which I was like, I had no idea you could even do that in the game. Like,
no, didn't even know that. And that backward slide Molotov shot, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. Alex, were you irrationally passionate about this video game?
Do you want to talk before me, Mario, or do you want me to go now?
I'm scared when you say things like that. You know what? I'll say I was irrationally passionate about this game. My history with Last of Us is actually kind of interesting because it's the first game I've ever played on PlayStation 3. I didn't get a PlayStation until the very end of that light cycle because someone actually gave it to me as a gift. He just straight up bought me a PS3, and it was the Last of Us edition. And I would play the story, obviously, which blew my mind, but playing, obviously, the multiplayer, which to me blew my mind even more, which is shocking that this one doesn't have it. Maybe coming in later, so I'm excited for that. Because I developed a community over the game. Obviously, because of the story. We all grew to love the story, but also thought the community that I had with those friends. So I have a lot of resonance with the story and the game as a whole. When I beat the end of the first one, I thought that was a period. No more needed. I didn't think I would ultimately need a Last of Us Part 2. And then, of course, when they announced it at, oh my God, what's the experience? PSX. That doesn't exist anymore until hopefully a couple more years.
Thanks, Jim Ryan.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for that. And what I am very pleasant to say is that I think that not only did they nail a sequel to The Last of Us, and that it follows up a lot of what they did in that one and gives me the answers that I was looking for, but ultimately gave me something I wasn't thinking I was expecting that I'd want. In the same way that this game is about revenge, it reminds me of a lot of movies that I love, including Michael, we talked about this on Twitter, of Old Boy, Mr. Vengeance, Lady Vengeance, all those movies. So that was, to me, a good starting point. And then obviously when you get to the later half of the game, when everything changes for a bit, that was the game where I was like, oh, I was not looking forward to. But ultimately, I grew to appreciate, and I ultimately think I love more. I think that with this specific story and with these characters, I personally had one of the best emotional rides this generation of console and gaming in general. This is hard to say because I'm a shell because I have the collector's edition behind me. Sony Pony, yes. Gameplay wise, to me, I personally am okay with the Last of Us or Uncharted games or how they play. I don't have those main issues that a lot of people seem to have. So when it comes to the little improvements, especially when it comes to the stealth aspects of this game, I thought that they sung beautifully, especially when you would go underneath cars and be able to aim your different weapons, or when you go to under like different crevices, or being able when you get knocked back and then you immediately can shoot. Like those to me like made the realism in the moment. So I'm really happy about those things. The only, I guess, nitpicks that I think a lot of people have is that they feel the game is too long, but I feel like by the time you get to the Switch, I just feel like you just want to get back to where the middle of the game is. And that's why I feel like people think that the end drags too much, when really it's just the second half of the game. I get it though. I totally understand those criticisms. But ultimately I would say that, yeah, Last of Us, there's two games that kicked me in the teeth this year so far, and it's been Last of Us Part 2 and actually Final Fantasy VII Remake. I never played Final Fantasy. That was a new experience for me, and therefore I got to enjoy and love those characters. This was a game where I knew the characters, but they did something to circumvent that, to actually tell me a story that I wasn't prepared for, that I was really excited for. So go ahead and ruin my dreams, Alex.
Yeah, I talked to Logan about it, and that conversation just went up today, the day we're recording this. But yeah, conflicted is where I definitely fall on the game. I think when I ultimately boil down to it, I definitely don't like it more than I like it, and I think I'm disappointed in a lot of things about it. But obviously, there's a lot to like in it. And I'm appreciative of the ambition in it, and I like what they tried to do. I just don't think they succeeded, in my opinion, at least for me. And I think what's interesting about the game is that it hinges a lot on how a lot of specific parts about it are going to play to you. And you see kind of people splitting up into different kind of sides of things, which I think is not the point. But it's interesting to see that, because these kind of different characters speak to different people. I just think I was frustrated by things that are easy to nitpick and became more and more and more nitpicky as the game went on, and so I was just never quite happy along the ride. And I do think it's too long. But
it's okay.
We'll kind of get into more specifically about that, I'm sure, later. But I think there's a lot to like here. I think there's a lot of great character here. And I think it's an extremely well-made video game. Like, there's so much in it. I don't know how they made all these assets, all these buildings, all these notes, all these letters, all these character models, all these names. I don't know how they did any of this in a one continuous thing at all. So there's a lot to like there. I think I just, if we're talking on a narrative level, I walked away really just unhappy with how they went about doing it. But mechanically, I was just generally, I expected more, and there wasn't as much of an improvement as I wanted from The Last of Us 1.
Okay.
But we'll get into it. I'm sure there's plenty to talk about now that y'all know. Now it's us versus them. Me versus y'all.
That's right. That's why you're in the middle. You're in the middle of us.
Exactly. I'm the Last of Us.
Oh no. I'm definitely curious from what you had when you said that there are some things that you're nitpicking about the story and what it meant, or what would you say The Last of Us, the first game, means to you? Like, what was your focus? Was it the Ellie and Joel story?
I had it's funny because I think if we go through beat by beat, I just had a really different reaction to how The Last of Us Part 2 treated parts of The Last of Us Part 1. Like when there's like a big moment toward the early part of part 2 where a character dies, I was like not upset at all. I was like, this makes sense if you were to contextualize what happened and have a natural logical next step. This is what this character deserves. This is what would happen. And it was kind of for that exact reason, like I was thinking about that when I thought The Last of Us doesn't need a sequel. That is what I thought would happen, of course. And so when we get there, I just like from there was like, this is already not the story I wanted to know. This is already not the story I cared about. Whether, I don't know what that story would be. It's them to decide. But it was just, I was divested pretty early on because I kind of had a feeling where it would go. And then, that switch that you mentioned earlier, that was like the first point in the game where I was like, oh, now I'm interested to see what happens. As opposed to a lot of people had the kind of reverse reaction of like, oh, this sucks. like, and that really surprised me. So like, I think I just had different highs and lows throughout the game. And so it kind of like left a very different impression on me. How I felt about the first one. I love the first one a ton. And, I purported it to be one of my favorite games of all time for a very long time. But revisiting it recently, I felt very differently about it. I think it just didn't speak to me as much.
Okay.
Kind of going off that, like, I do think this is one of the things I've been thinking about more is the first half of that game. And I think the first half of that game, when I was first going through it, it was mainly elation just that I was playing the game, and I was happy to just generally be playing this game that we've been hearing about for 4 or 5 years at this point. In retrospect, I do think the first part of that game, the first half with all the Ellie stuff, is a little bit weaker than I initially gave it credit for. And that's not to say it's bad, but it is just very one note. And I don't know if we want to get into actual specific spoilers. Like, there are some certain things I feel like we can't dodge for too long.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring it up. So, like, now that I felt that we got our general stuff out, I think we can move on to that. So,
and anybody who's watching this, I'm sure, has spoiled it for themselves. And there have been things out
you're about to,
or hopefully finish the game by now.
Spoilers,
there's been
Ellie
things out and
shoots
open for
Crash in
2
the
or 3
face.
months. So
Yeah.
there you go. There's your point. When Joel dies and then Ellie goes on her revenge quest to kill everybody who played a part in that, you're very much invested in the moment because you're meant to align with Ellie and you're mad about them killing Joel because, assuming you're somebody who likes Joel from the first game, which I know there are people who do not. But when they kill Joel and then Ellie goes after them for revenge or whatever, like, you're very much on board with that venture. And then somewhere for me around day like 2.5, like, it started to just kind of fall in on itself, where it became very checklist oriented in a way that I wasn't super loving. Like, you find Leah and she's dead, and then that's a breadcrumb trail to another person, and it's, oh, okay, well, maybe we can go find this person, and then, oh, well, this person leads to this person leads to this person, and I get how it all links up, but it was almost too happenstance that she was just able to slowly, one by one, check all these boxes off of these people who had wronged her. And I get it. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like this crazy ingenious right. I guess I should say I'm not faulting the writing. I don't think the writing is poor in that way.
Yeah.
But it was just very much by the numbers. Like, I knew what was coming next. Like, every single next day that happened in Seattle, I knew it was going to be, okay, well, now we're going to find this person and we're going to go after them. And even when you get to the point where Ellie is torturing Nora, she's like, well, I got to beat the information out of you. It's like, well, she's going to get the information she wants because there's more of this game to play. And I know she's got to go find whoever's next. So it just, the stakes feel, my biggest complaint about the game is the stakes feel constantly low in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's hard to get invested because on Ellie's end, it's a revenge quest going one by one down the line, trying to knock off all these people and get to Abby. Yeah. And then on Abby's end, she's doing different things, yes, but the people in her life, what happens to them. So the stakes feel low in that regard, that how most of them are going to meet their demise outside of, like, Manny, who's just kind of out of nowhere. But yeah, I think that was one of my biggest issues. The whole game comes to a head there with the theater, the middle part where it leaves with the cliffhanger and then comes back to, and then obviously the very end of the game at Santa Barbara.
Oh, you're just going to say all the spoilers for us, huh?
We said spoilers are up. Yeah,
you're just going to say them all.
Spoilers are up.
I mean, I feel like the tension builds well to those moments, but everything in between it just feels so like I know what's going to happen next, and I think that's my biggest complaint. Kind of when I look back on the game a little bit more.
In regards to some of the things that obviously you said, you know this, you know what's going to happen next. I can see that where there is obviously a clear pattern. When a lot of that stuff, especially with like early on, before Ellie actually starts killing off the 12 people that she needs to kill, I do think that a lot of those deaths are actually just so that way it's not to impart that she's so evil, because ultimately it's Tommy doing those things. But I do like the breadcrumbs of the little things you do hear about Abby in the background, while at the same time you're hearing that also, I believe, on Abby's side for the most part. And I do love Abby's side because it gives more context to these people that you're actually killing, and even the faceless ones, which are the people that are just roaming around and you're constantly killing while you're getting to your objective. Because when you go to Abby's section and you meet all of them, like especially when you go to the hospital before Ellie does, you see everyone that you murder. Like they all have their own. They all have all their individual, you know, their voices and people names and stuff like that. So I think the game did a good job of like balancing between those two, and I never got bored of it. It was just cool to see it's literally like watching, like, I was gonna say the Spielberg movie that got people on hot water. It's like watching Casablanca, but from a different perspective, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thought about this a lot. I'm curious, just since we're in the spoiler zone, and maybe this is a good way to talk about specific parts of the game.
Yes.
I think I would have liked this game more if you played Abby's 3 days before you played Ellie's. And I'm curious what you guys would think if they did that. So imagine Joel dies, and then it's Seattle Day One with Abby. I'm like that whole little middle chunk gone. Because then you don't have the context of knowing that Ellie's killing these people. So that way you're playing through, and essentially the mystery is reversed. Like, who's killing these people? Who are the trespassers? You see Tommy. I think that would have pissed way more people off, obviously, but I would have been so much more invested if that were the case.
I think that would help with a lot of like the pacing issues, because I think a lot of the issue comes down to how you play as Ellie first, you go shift to Abby, and then you shift back into Ellie's mode, and that kind of like, I think that last part in Santa Barbara like feels almost like tacked on, because it is right after a part that is like very effectively done. Like Ellie's like in the farmhouse and has like the perfect life and stuff, and I get why they do that. I get why that is the way it is. But I think if you were to have played Abby first and then go to Ellie and be Ellie for like a pretty good chunk of time, like if that were the case, then you'd be playing as Ellie from the Seattle Day One up until Santa Barbara, really. You'd be playing, I think in a way that would almost make people happier, just because then
I just don't
you
think
have like that giant chunk of Ellie gameplay, which is like why people are upset, because I don't know, like people didn't want to play as Abby or whatever, but...
As much as people consider this game like Metal Gear Solid 2 with the Raiden switch, I just don't want it to be Halo 5. You know, I don't want it to be be stuck with someone that I do not care about and obviously wish death upon, which is how I felt at the beginning of this game. But here's the thing, though. I think the reason why the switch is because if you are playing Abby first and you meet all these people, you would just feel even worse killing them.
Yeah, like, I think for me, like with the whole, like, you know, Joel dies and then you play the first half with Ellie, and I think naturally if you're playing that segment and Joel dies, you're like, okay, I want to play as Ellie because I want to get revenge. I want to, I want to avenge Joel. I want to avenge his death. I think you'd lose that if you're playing as Abby, as much as maybe it might make a little more sense narratively. But I think, and then when you have the switch when you're playing as Abby, then I think it puts Ellie's actions and what she does a little bit more into context, and, sort of re-examine like what she's doing and say, oh, like, she's pursuing revenge, but she's also like having an impact on these people's lives now that you're seeing things from Abby's perspective.
Yeah, I think in the way that they did it, I think it perfectly like makes you question Ellie's actions like throughout it, because I think if you were to just go in and do Abby's story first, I think you'd kind of lose that kind of context, because you're already doing Abby's story and you already hate her.
Yeah.
And so you're sure you're gonna see like that they're living an actual life and stuff like that. But I don't think that those segments of like actually seeing how the wolves lived and stuff like that would be not nearly as effective if that you hadn't like killed all of them first.
Yeah, because my friend pointed out
in the Ellie
specifically.
part.
Yeah, my friend specifically pointed out that he killed a dog. Sorry, in the game, and the dog's name was Bear. And he kills it, and someone yells out, "Bear, no!" Then he switches to Abby, and you pet Bear before Bear dies.
But I do think that like
Before you murdered
if
him.
you were to switch like from Abby to Ellie, I think in terms of like pacing, I think it'd be in terms of like gameplay and pacing and stuff like that, I think it would have panned out a lot better.
Sure.
Just because you are playing that one chunk of Ellie and you get Ellie's story all in one piece. And people can, I guess, decide if they want to continue that once you get into the Abby stuff after that too. But yeah, I don't know. I think how they did it, I think, was probably the most effective way they could have told the story that they wanted to tell. But I think either way they would have dealt with some sort of pacing issue, whether it be the storytelling or a gameplay issue or something like that.
I think thematically, if they did the switch backwards, I think it would have conveyed the wrong things or the things that the writers weren't trying to go for.
Yeah.
I think it would have made Ellie's actions look almost more heroic in a way. Because if you were playing, maybe not heroic, but I think one of the things about putting Ellie's section at the front is that when you first start her quest for revenge, you're very much like totally gung-ho, yes, let's kill all these people. And then by the time you get to the end of it, though, I don't know about you guys, but I was feeling totally different about it. Like, she was just killing people in cold blood. Like, and it was super messed up.
Like Manny, right?
Killing Mel. She's killing Mel and Danny and Owen and beating Nora to death with a lead pipe. And it's like, okay, like maybe these people deserve this, but this is pretty messed up, Ellie. I think if you reverse it and you start seeing that, I guess you wouldn't even be keyed into the fact that those people are dying necessarily. Because Abby doesn't.
Abby doesn't hear it until the very end.
Abby doesn't know that they're dying until she sees Owen and Mel.
Yeah, because she's going on her own journey.
That she knows are dying.
That's why I think it would be better.
So if you walked in on them and found out they died, that would be a really harrowing moment from Abby's perspective. Maybe you might still hate them so much though from 10 hours earlier when they killed Joel.
Yeah.
Once you got to that point, you might think, heck yeah, they deserve that. And then when you find out who killed them, it might paint Ellie in a more heroic light, when that I don't think was the intention behind that. I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know. It's a hard sell. I think, it's a hard sell regardless. I mean, just the broad pitch of this person kills Joel. Okay, now play as this person for 12 hours is going to be a really hard thing to follow through on at the end of the day. I feel like no matter what developer took that on, Hideo Kojima could have made this game himself, and I don't know if he would have been able to pull off the double switch again.
He already did.
Ago.
We're good. He already did. He did a good job. But in the same sense of like, yeah, man, just that's I needed the way that this game laid out its context of what Abby's doing through Ellie's eyes, so that way I can see it through Ellie's eyes to see what Abby's actions are when we play as her. Only because I feel like when you get to that point where you're fighting between each other and you don't want to press the X because you don't want a bad result, you just don't want nothing to happen to both of them, depending on who you are. I think that thematically, I think the game does lay out all the things that you need to know to get to a certain point, and it's like an emotional pitch. But I can understand how people would want to see it in a different way. So, it's interesting that we could both like the story. We just wish it was told differently. Like, I wouldn't mind Abby's section. Like, the beginning of the game, I think actually should have been her and her dad. And then you reveal the hospital, right? Because there's that shot where you see the hospital. I think that's probably where the game should have began. And then it leads up to Abby, maybe in the Overlook or wherever they're at, the Overlook Hotel.
That makes sense, yeah.
Something that... Oh, sorry, keep on going.
No, then you continue through.
Something that somebody on our staff, also on Alex's, Scott, said was...
somebody on both of our staffs.
Both staffs, Scott. He said, I think he was talking about if you could choose whose adventure you kind of wanted to start with first instead. Like you can like after, I guess probably after you would kill Joel, then you would be able to choose either you want to choose Abby's story or you want to choose Ellie's story, or maybe even from the start choosing Abby's or Ellie's. What do you guys think about that? I mean, really, I personally, I don't know if that would be the best option.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I think just because like the stories don't necessarily match like 1-to-1, like they're not necessarily like in the same sort of direction. Like I think especially because like each half of the story sort of influences the other half and what you're meant to feel. Like I think you know, as much as like there is some weird sort of pacing issues and things like that, like I think the way that they told it was very specific and arranged in a certain way. So I don't know if I necessarily would want it to be like, okay, you could choose either to play as Ellie or Abby and, you know, go from there.
Especially with Mel at the end. I think it would be very troubling.
I'd shout out to Scott for thinking about switching the narratives as well. Yeah, my thing is like, Naughty Dog would just never do that because they would never leave that choice up to the player.
They never show their hand that far ahead either.
Yeah, they wouldn't show their hand that far ahead, but they would want to choose what ultimately they thought bettered the pace, right? They made the decision.
Yeah.
I would bet, I don't know this, and I'm sure maybe this is confirmation of the other side, but I wonder if they'd considered putting Abby's campaign first. But yeah, I think they wouldn't give you that choice. They would always make that choice for you and decide kind of what it is. My feeling is just that, you know, a lot of you said that you had such a visceral reaction to playing as Abby or not necessarily being invested right away. I just like the idea of them ripping that Band-Aid off early in a full Metal Gear Solid 2 way of like, obviously that was the rest of the game, but like, no, we're going to show you this is very early on. You're going to know that this is not what you thought it would be. And you're going to have to deal with that. Like for me, I just think that would be more genuine to the ambition of this game to be that challenging up front. And I think it would be more challenging. I don't think it would be worse on Ellie or better on Ellie. I think it would just be more challenging to the player's perspective. I think it would have left a stronger impact on people.
And I think also knowing like Naughty Dog, I'm sure if that were the case, like obviously we're talking about like, oh, what if you cut and paste this section, put it over in the front instead?
Yeah,
like I'm sure
there'd be more to it than that.
I'm sure there'd be more to it, obviously. And I think in the end, I think they would be able to make that work for sure. I think that maybe that I wouldn't have liked Abby as much then, because I think seeing Ellie kill all these people and then seeing it's almost like Abby's redemption arc is what this game is. You know, it's not necessarily Ellie's story. Yeah, it is Ellie's story, but it's not Ellie's redemption arc by any means. It's actually very much the opposite. But
her redemption doesn't really start until the very end of the game.
But but seeing Abby's redemption arc of like her taking in Lev and I forgot what the girl's name is, Yara, and taking them and helping them out and seeing that whole thing. I think that arc is very well told, even though it's like super weird and kind of like out of context in a way that it kind of just didn't make sense in a way. But I really enjoyed
one thing about
part.
this.
Yeah,
about Lev and Yara. I didn't mention this to you the other day when we were going to talk about this, Alex, but I feel like the way that they went about explaining why she feels a need to go back and help them was a little too heavy-handed with the whole like, oh, I had a dream about them. Now I should go back. The dream
is a lot, yeah.
They like it should have just been like a natural inclination, like, oh, and I gotta go. There's something I gotta do. Thing.
Lev asks at one point, "Why are you helping us?" And she said, and she doesn't say anything. He says guilt, and she just says, "I thought I'd tip the scales a little more," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I really, weirdly enough, that like I really like that Abby's motivation for doing anything out of character is just that she feels that need to balance, because I think that's just Owen reflecting on her. And I like that, because I think there's truth in that guilt makes you do things that are out of character. And I think when something really weighs on you, that you're just more likely to do something like impulsive. And I think this is just that impulse taking its effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's also why too. Like, you know, later in the game when I'm sure we'll go into this, but like, you know, in the ending when Ellie, you know, decides whether or not to go after Abby to get her revenge, I think that's probably sort of a similar thing. Like she's weighing whether or not to actually go after Abby and get what she wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's one of those things where we'll get to it at the end, but like I think a lot of those head-to-heads are really necessary for those characters, even if I don't particularly like any of the context that sets them up. A thing that I think about, and you know, this is another one of my negatives, so forgive me for harping.
I'm preparing. Counting them down.
My thing about, you know, you liking Abby more or liking Ellie more is like, I think it just ultimately comes down to manipulation, right? Like I don't think it's that clever. I think it's just that whoever's story you play second, you're going to like more. And the reason most people are gravitating toward a team is because they contextualize things in a manipulative way to make you feel one way. And they do it, I think, to a good effect. They want to challenge your perspective. You came into this game thinking it would be one thing, and now you care about another thing. And I like that. I just think at its core, maybe it's just the discourse around the game. Like at its core, it seems manipulative, and people are getting caught up on whose side you're on. And it's just, the point is there are no sides.
Are you Team Edward or are you Team Jacob?
Yeah, exactly. I made that same joke to Logan.
I think it comes down to like, I guess me saying that I liked Abby's more. It's more that like it surprised me that they were able to tell her story in a way that I found compelling. Like I didn't. Like you don't know this character coming in, and you kind of aren't really supposed to like her because she kills like your favorite character or whatever like that. And to be able to then play as her and then see her side of it and be like, oh, yeah, Ellie's also terrible. And well, I mean, you kind of see that anyway, like as you're playing as Ellie too. But like yeah, I think really it comes down to like they do tell a really good tale of like, there's no right or wrong in this at all. It's all bad and all that. So I mean, that's what I mean by that. It's just like it's not necessarily that I thought Abby was a better person. I just thought that the fact that they were able to tell that story and compel me to like actually like not necessarily side with her, but like kind of see like, oh, this isn't right or wrong. It's not about that. It's really just, it's all kind of in a gray area. And I really liked how they were able to effectively tell that, even with a character that I had no experience with at all before this.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Abby became one of my favorite characters. Actually, if they do a 3, I don't really want Ellie to be in it, but she's probably still gonna have to be. But I would rather it follow Abby and Lev personally.
I don't. I want to see Ellie.
Nah, the Fireflies suck.
Yeah,
Fireflies are terrible. If they found that group, I hope they were all dead by the time they rolled up to that camp.
I mean,
I want to see Ellie pull a Tony Iommi and get like metal caps on her fingers and start playing guitar again.
I was like, oh, I want to see. This sounds like rock legend Black Sabbath guitarist who does this. This is very easy.
Yeah, this isn't the end for her. She could totally do this.
There's just got to be a montage of her building that, and then she puts it on her hand and just goes groovy and just starts playing guitar. I'm all about that.
That'd be sick as fuck.
She just plays Children of. Starts with Children of the Corn or Children of the Grave. I mean, that's right.
Children of the Corn.
All right. Let's talk about the external cast around it, because obviously we have Joel, we have Ellie and Abby, but let's talk about the other characters, because I think they sing along with everything, and I don't think they get enough spotlight personally. I want to start with actually Ellie's side. So let's talk about a little bit about what did you guys think of the relationship with Ellie and Deena, as well as the three-way relationship with them and Jesse?
It's great.
Yeah,
Deena's great.
Yeah, all the characters are great.
I think Deena was probably one of my favorite new characters that was introduced. I think she was
Yeah, I personally really did and dug their relationship, even though it's so interesting that the dichotomy of like Jesse's like, cool, whatever, dog. Like I actually joked with Michael on the internet where I said he's the Holden McNeil of this universe, because he has.
That was an insult. I can't believe you said that.
That is not an insult. He's the proud father of a lesbian family's baby.
But I like that they go out of their way to like to not erase that Deena is bi. You know, like I
Yeah.
like that it is like it's important to some people, and it's important here, and it's important to these. It makes these characters feel three-dimensional, and it's a little subtle way, and the way Jesse comes into that relationship never feels like a love triangle.
Yeah.
And they take a lot of care with how these characters interact.
Yeah, like I oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it never feels like anything's just like some garbage stereotype in this game.
No,
That's what I loved about it. That's why I like
Not enough
Jesse
Riverdale for
so
you?
much. Like you know, I'm Filipino, so I'm Asian, and I don't get to see like a lot of cool Asian characters ever that aren't like freaking samurais and ninjas and shit, you know?
Have you ever heard of Jin from the game Ghost of
I
Tsushima?
have, and I'm very excited to play it,
Me
but
too.
still,
Hey, are you playing it today?
no, I am not playing it.
I'm playing on a Vita.
But yeah, it's just I never get to see those characters, you know, or have some like thick Asian accent or something like that. This was just just a dude who just so happens to be Asian. Like he just seemed like a normal guy I'd like to get a beer with. It seemed really cool. There's somebody that like
Texan accent, right? Like
yeah, he has like a Texan, but yeah, I mean yeah, but it was just nice to see that because like I don't ever get that experience ever like in a video game. It's always like there's an Asian dude, he probably wields a sword at some point, like every time. So it's like and I never personally get to see that. So it's cool to like see. It's like I get to see kind of myself in a video game. That's why I like Jesse so much. Is because I kind of see myself in Jesse in that way.
Do you think Jesse liked Rush?
Yeah, I think he did.
He went
how
100%
upset
like
were
that.
you when Jesse got fucking got?
Dude.
Let's talk about that. We don't get enough time to breathe.
You were playing this game behind us, and I had already gotten to that point. You're like, I really hope my boy Jesse doesn't die. I'm like, Mike's got some bad things coming up in a couple hours.
Spoiler chat thing. I was like, man, if Jesse dies, this is gonna suck so bad on this game. He freaking gets shot in the fucking face, and I'm like, oh my god, are you?
You don't get a
kidding me?
moment. You don't get a moment to grieve.
I teared. I was like, no, not my boy.
Him and Manny get the throwaway death.
Yeah, Manny too.
I remember in our spoiler chat when Mike was like, "Man, I hope that Jesse doesn't die," and I had already gotten past that point, and I was like, I was like,
I love that character so much. He's so cool. And then I was like, oh, no.
Listen, maybe
so
maybe he's gonna be like Han, just show up in the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know who I was talking to when I was playing this game. I forget who I was texting, and somebody texted me that they had gotten to that point, and they're like, well, do you think he's still alive, though? And I was like, bro, it kind of had a hole in the middle of his face. Like, I think he's probably dead.
The same could be. We're gonna talk about Tommy and his freaking.
why was this name? Tommy
has
the
9 lives.
Tommy the indestructible character because he gets shot
the
point blank in
biggest
the face
bottom,
and
man.
survives. Like,
Tommy's indestructible, but his marriage isn't.
He went to the same plot armor store that the cast of Game of Thrones went to, man.
Yeah.
Like,
You just lose your eye.
yeah, just lose an eye.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go back into like all the characters and stuff like that, I feel like every character, like Lev, Deena, all of them, like it never felt like just like a bunch of stereotypes. It always felt like very natural, like those characters came off naturally. It never felt forced or anything like that. But
Yeah,
When
I
Deena's-
appreciate them reaching through a spectrum of representation for it too, right? Like, you know, Deena, also a Jewish character, right? And the Eastman,
yeah.
a great scene in a synagogue.
When you go in the mosque.
I was gonna say that scene I think was like one of my standouts for her and sort of developing her and making her like Mario said, like making these characters feel a little bit more like 3-dimensional and developed.
Like her sister had a Torah that was half burnt, so she was excited to see one that wasn't, right? Like it's little things like that that really add a 3-dimensional character. And I don't think for a second that there was pandering in this game, and I know that's some people's complaints about it.
We're gonna talk about that in a second. I know.
But yeah, I think they just did a great job trying to make a diverse cast of characters feel natural and whole and interesting in this world, and I think they did a great job.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree.
On the other side of the spectrum, on Abby's side, we have 2 sets of people, I would say. We have obviously the wolves or former Fireflies, and then you have the Scar sister, or Siblings.
Seraphites.
Siblings.
Seraphites. Yeah.
Right.
Seraphites, better. Thank you. Let's before I get to the Seraphites, because they're going to be the ones that I think are going to be the most interesting about representation, especially about certain characters. What did you ultimately think of the wolves? Now that you've got the context of who they all are, I mean, actually, yeah, I was shocked at how much I cared about Manny, because he spit on Joel's corpse, and then he got shot in the face, and I felt bad about it.
I didn't get down with Manny that much. Manny was like a cool bro, but
Dude, 3 burritos, my man.
he was a little. I don't know. If any character was gonna come across a little stereotypical in this game, I felt like it was him a little bit, where he's like, "Hey, I'm a cool bro. I'm gonna cut in line and get the burritos. I gotta use your room so I can bang this chick." Yeah, it was all of a sudden like there was a college frat bro in this game or something like that. I didn't think Manny was a bad character. I thought he had some good moments with Abby throughout the game. But
there were two meta jokes in Abby's campaign, and it was very bad. I thought there was one where you're seeing somebody play a video game, or it's the Vita, and she just goes, "Video games," and I was like, "Oh." And then the other one,
they're in
the Hotline Miami.
right?
Yeah, Hotline Miami.
What game are they playing in the cafeteria?
I couldn't figure that out.
It's not Hotline Miami.
No, the other one is, and the person playing it was like, she's like, "How's that game?" She's like, "It's really good, but it's really hard."
I knew what it was, but I don't know now.
I couldn't figure it out either. I kept staring at it. It looked like some sort of like platformer or something. But
which sounds like a Vita game. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds like a video game.
It was Persona 4 Golden.
Should have been.
The cred this game would get if that was true, though.
It's just Uncharted's Golden Abyss.
It looks like
guy was
the only
playing
game worth owning a Vita for.
he was getting deep into a visual novel.
Yeah.
He's playing Hot Level Boyfriend. That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the relationship with Mel and Owen, because that becomes central, I guess, to Abby, because everyone else is like, hey, how's it going? And then they disappear to their depths. Owen and Mel are the ones that you get to have more of a story with Abby, specifically Owen. What did you think of actually the relationship of Abby and Owen being sort of these like on again, off again boyfriend, girlfriend, but clearly he's with Mel. What did you ultimately think of their relationship? Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think it was hard to get a read on Owen and Mel and how I felt about them as characters. Like, I think just because, like, they, I guess, try to, they like all the other characters, they humanize them in a way, but also, like, I guess they're, yeah, I don't know. I had a tough time getting a read on them, I think. And, like, I think, like, because you, like, playing as Abby, you sort of get to see what their relationships with her, especially with the whole sort of like love triangle between the three of them, that it's like pretty heated, like, yeah, I don't know. They were the characters I think that I had like a tough time sort of empathizing with, even though the game I think wants you to sort of, especially with Mel being pregnant and all that stuff, like it's, yeah.
I think Owen actually was the one thing that drew me more, which was because he wanted to have that relationship with Abby, and Abby kept pushing it away. Abby's the one that kept, like, I gotta go train. Like, she dedicated herself so much to being this perfect specimen of something that would be a killing machine. My personal reading, and I've heard other people have different ones, but I personally think that the reason why she's as jacked as she is, because she wants to make herself so perfect, because that's all she's focusing on is potentially meeting up with Joel. And then she just ropes everyone else along into her journey, basically. But I found that dichotomy of her only having the vision on the one thing basically detracted everything else that was going on in her life. Like, ultimately, she is a soldier for the good and for people. I think that's why she was able to fall into the wolves, even being a former Firefly. But I loved Owen's like sort of like hopeless, like never ever really wanting to be there. I always felt like he was obviously objective, like he wanted to be part of the best of humanity, so that's why he was trying to find the Fireflies.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, like when they had the whole scene with Abby and her dad, and where you're going through like the zoo and you're wandering around, and like her dad's like, "Oh, that Owen guy, like what do you think? You like him?" What? And she's like, like responding in a very sort of like awkward teenager type of way. So I think it's interesting, seeing that, and then seeing when you see her in the present and sort of her relationship with him, and how sort of complex it gets later on.
Yeah, especially when it's like her time with him has now passed. It is now him and Mel. But that gets obviously complicated in a way that I felt was humanistic and realistic, personally. when it comes to, go ahead, sorry.
No, go for it. You were talking.
No, the only other thing, because to bring up the fact that you talked about her father being like, oh, what about that Owen boy? Joel has the same thing with Jesse.
With Jesse, yeah. I think it was like, obviously, like they try to mirror a lot of Abby's storyline with Ellie's storylines. I think, it was just another sort of instance where I think that happened.
For sure. What you were gonna say, Logan?
I mean, down to like Abby has a love triangle with someone who's pregnant.
Yes.
Only everyone's in different roles. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's those relationships are very intentionally mirrored.
Mel I couldn't get down with. Mel kind of was I mean, we're talking about how there's a lot of mirrors between the two. I like Deena way more, and I think Deena was tons more fleshed out than Mel was personally. But I feel like on either side of these triangles that we have on both sides, I feel like Mel was the one who was not fleshed out a whole lot. She purely seemed like she just played the role of this is Owen's new chick or new girlfriend, and that was kind of it. Like, I feel like I don't know who Mel is at all as a character in this game, other than the new person that Owen moved on to be with after Abby, even though he really doesn't want to be with her, and they're kind of distant and they have a weird fractured relationship. Everything about Mel that I am informed of about her character is informed off of how she plays off of Owen rather than who she is as an individual. And so I never really felt close to Mel other than when Ellie kills her, and I'm like, dang, that's pretty messed up that you killed pregnant lady right there. Yeah. Other than that, I really had no draw to Mel specifically, which is kind of strange because Ashley Birch played that character.
There's that section where she's with you on the truck and you go on that adventure together that I thought I would actually gain more insight for the character, but I don't. I can't.
Instead it's just kind of like they still. I mean, it's clear that Abby and Mel are kind of at odds with one another, and they try to make like small talk rather than actually get down to have any sort of real conversations. The realest conversation they have in that whole game is really just when Mel's like, "Abby, you're an asshole. I don't like you," and that's about the end of it. But again, that's nothing. That's really just giving you a better insight into what she actually thinks about Abby. Basically verifying that she knows that Abby has basically still got a thing for Owen and has been kind of. I mean, that's why there's that weird trepidation between the two of them, because they know how each of the two of them feels.
Doesn't she also inform them that Isaac's looking for Abby, and then there's some shift?
I think so.
That?
Maybe.
So she might have some insight that some of their friends might be doing, but I don't think she brings it up. Yeah.
I think the other thing that I'm kind of curious about, and this is another thing, again, this is way in the weeds and probably not even anything to look into or talk about too much, but like, I found it interesting that Owen and the rest of her friends don't seem super supportive, or I guess we only see it through Owen's perspective, but Owen doesn't seem super supportive about her still being vengeful and trying to get revenge on Joel. So when they inevitably go down to Jackson to kill him, I found it a little bit odd retroactively that Owen seemed like totally not on board for that idea. Yet Owen goes down there with her, as does like 10 other people. Which, I mean, I get that if you were going to travel like that, you would probably want to travel in a large group and things like that.
Yeah.
So to that degree, I get it. But at the same time, I guess I'm wondering how that even came about in the first place. There's some other gaps that have been filled too. Again, I've been listening to like way more stuff from the actual writers that have been talking about this game, but they're things that are never put in the game. I guess Isaac was like best friends with her dad, which is how he got thrown, how she went to the WLF in the first place, because she knew Isaac personally, and that's where she knew to go after her dad died. And so that's how she even ends up in Washington. The game never really explains any of that, though, and it's just kind of like, why is she in Washington now? Okay, she went from Utah to Seattle for some reason. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of specific weird things like that we could get into, I guess, but
yeah, for sure.
Don't need to.
I just think the WLF crew, the Firefly crew specifically, I don't think any of those characters are likable. I like Owen, I like Abby, and I don't like anybody else, you know. And which, to be fair, like I think those are the characters that they spend the most time with. Those are the characters you're supposed to like the most. And you don't really need to connect to any of the other characters except for Lev and Yara, which I also like.
Yeah, we'll talk about now, I was going to say. Let's talk about the Seraphites that join Abby. basically on her journey. Starting with, I would say, their introduction. Their introduction is pretty messed up, which was, of course, I tried to avoid all of the trailers. I don't know if anybody knows this. I avoided literally everything other than seeing a few snippets. So I saw the snippets of someone being hung, but I didn't know who it was. And I did see the dancing, but I didn't know the context of that. So when the game began and you don't see the dancing scene, I was actually like, oh, is this that even in the game?
Yeah, I thought that wasn't in the game as well.
Yeah, till the very, very end, which I'm like, oh, okay, fine. That's cool that you showed me stuff that won't pay off. At least the emotional resonance doesn't pay off until you actually get there. So that's pretty cool. But their introduction as like scars that are being attacked by scars, and you don't know why. And then Abby proceeds to go with them just for survival at the beginning, and then literally they save her life, if I'm not mistaken, and then she saves their lives. And then she then has that regret, goes back to help them, and then starts really at the beginning. I think the relationship really starts to build when you get to the skyscraper part. What was your response to the relationship between Abby and Lev specifically, and what grows with when you find out Lev's secret? Start with Logan. You look the most pensive.
I mean, they spend a lot of time fleshing the relationship out between the two of them. Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about the moments between them that stand out the most. You know, Lev trying to figure out why Abby's doing this in the first place. Her line later on saying, like, "You're my people, Lev." Like, I
still get choked up when I hear that.
I mean, yeah, it shows that, like, these two. I like it because it shows that these two sides that have just been in this never-ending battle with one another for this, as Owen says, like, this piece of land that he doesn't even care about, and I'm sure most of the people in that city don't even care about. These two sides just keep going at it, and they're so locked into that mentality for so long that when they get out of that mentality a little bit, can quickly become friends and quickly get on the same side with one another and see each other as humans rather than just, you're the opposite side as me, I should hate you or try to kill you for that reason alone. So I like that dynamic. It's a very basic dynamic, I felt like, between them for the most part. I didn't feel like, I know a lot of people have been saying that they'd like to see a full-blown sequel with those two in run around the country together. I think that would be potentially a little bit interesting, and it would allow them to flesh things out a little bit more. And then I like at the end of the game where you can tell, I guess my favorite part of their relationship is when you do get to Santa Barbara and you briefly play as Abby. Yeah. You can tell that they've gotten way more familiar with one another. They're joking around a lot more, and Lev's not really getting some of the jokes still. And they're kind of poking fun at each other pretty often, which was a nice dynamic seeing them come out of Seattle, where it was a lot more grim and serious all the time.
Were you expecting it to be essentially a remake of the first game? Because it very much mirrors Joel and Ellie's first introduction all the way through.
Yeah, that was kind of the impression I got from them, was like, you know, in the way.
Hold on, Ryan, I can't hear you. Can you?
Sorry, yeah. No, I think that with their relationship, like, you know, to me, it sort of mirrored the first game a lot, you know, with the way that they developed those two characters, and it like purposely sort of mirrored Joel and Ellie in the first game.
Is it one of those things where Ryan is just muted for you and you just can't hear him
Maybe?
forever?
I hope he's good. No, I see his waveform moving.
We can hear you fine, Ryan.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm not muted, so.
No. But sometimes Discord does that where one of the callers can't be heard by the host. And
all right, well, we're good though.
Okay.
Mario just can't respond to Ryan anymore, apparently.
I can hear you, but it's like a baby, like a little faint noise.
You can click on him, make him louder.
I try to click on make him louder. Oh, no, I effed it all up. There we go. We're all back.
Okay.
As far as Yara goes, I mean, I don't know if we want to get into her specifically yet, or if we want to stick on the dynamic between Lev and Abby. Yara, I just feel like got done dirty in a lot of different ways in this game.
She's the test for me, where her sacrifice leads on for them to continue on.
Yeah, but I feel like she didn't even get too flushed out herself.
No, I agree.
Because I mean, when you're in the aquarium and you finally get some one-on-one time with her, I feel like most of her lines in that aquarium scene are more informing you about Lev than they are about Yara herself.
Yes, I
and
agree.
then you spend some time with her for a little bit on the dock, and then you're like, hold up, there's a sniper up here. Let's not go this way.
Yeah.
And then you leave her behind, and then you eventually catch back up with her, and then you're with her for a little bit more, and then she gets off pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I feel like most for Abby's side of the story, I feel like most of the characters, other than maybe Lev, were just kind of a way of finding out more about Abby rather than like necessarily being their own sort of fleshed out characters. Not in the same way I think with characters like Jesse and Deena on Ellie's side of the story. I think that was sort of.
Lev, Abby, and Owen, I think, are really the only characters on that side you're supposed to care about at all.
Yeah.
And I think it shows. I think it hurts Abby's side of the story a lot, honestly. I think makes me indifferent about a lot of the kind of throwaway kills. But then I, when I come back to that, the Lev Abby story, I like it. And I really like both those characters. I like that they're both complicated. And I like that they're both kind of odd, they're both abnormal. And that's probably why they ended up gravitating toward one another, right? Like Abby is this very not effeminate character. And Lev is obviously a very not effeminate character, and they found each other in a really nice way. And I think those characters have a lot in common, and we get that. But I also think that it is just manipulation. Like I just, if the sides were flipped, and Ellie found something that helped her redeem herself, but then that came in the way of revenge, and it kind of had to be redemption or revenge. I'll choose redemption. That's Abby's arc. I think either character could have had that arc first, and you would have cared about them more. And I like that. I like those two arcs. I just don't like how they're almost used against each other. I think it diminishes both of them. I think it hurts both stories that they're forced against one another. When I think they could have just been good on their own. But obviously, take what you will. But I like everything between Lev and Abby. I don't like how Yara is thrown to the side pretty nonchalantly.
Literally bullet ridden.
Yeah, it's cool that I guess she's the one that kills Isaac. He kind of looks like he just gets a shoulder wound. I don't know. Maybe it was a headshot. It was happening really quickly.
Her KD is pretty good, man. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It just. I think it would have hit me more if I'd seen that side of the story first or anything. But I'm really conflicted. I like it so much about it. I like Lev so much. I like the way that they talk to each other so much. I love that Abby's afraid of heights. As someone who's afraid of heights, I love that is a mechanical part of her character.
Was that the point that you definitely most emotionally connected with her? Because it was for me.
Yeah, anything that grinds you. But it's also worth noting she's afraid of the infected, and that dilation of the camera happens when they get close to you as well. But they never say that. That's just something that you can contextually pick up. Mm-hmm. Really cool. And I think it adds, it changes the way you play that character in a mechanical way. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I think.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I kind of lost my train of thought anyway. You go ahead.
Okay, well, I was gonna go a little bit more in the Lev stuff because, more in like what you said, Michael, with the representation with Jesse and that he's personifying in that. While I wouldn't say that for me, it's not my story, but hearing the story of Yara, or actually when you're playing in the beginning and you first have them as part of your crew, you start hearing the Scars or Seraphites say, I can't remember the word they're saying, but they're calling Lev something. And I didn't
apostate.
know apostate. And I don't. Does anybody know what that means? I have no idea what it means.
I think it just means a Seraphite that is like a traitor or needs to be punished.
Okay. I was wondering if that...
it's a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle.
Got it. Thank you so much.
There you go.
They're like heretics, I guess.
Okay, cool. All right, now that I have that context, that actually helps it out. But basically, when you hear then people randomly saying a different name, which I'm not going to say, because I know people have problems with that, and I'm not going to say it. But Abby questions that once to Lev. Lev brings it up, and then she then has a conversation with Yara. And I found interesting that their story conflicts a lot with, obviously, because their whole thing is a religious, I wouldn't say cult, but a group, if you will, a mantra.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. It's culty.
It's like a death cult. Yeah.
It has a heavy connotation too, I would say.
It's got cult vibes.
It's got cult, and then you got your Jesus character, which is this lady that you never meet, never see, because she dies before the story even begins.
It's more of a Comstock character, but
yeah, for sure.
The Jesus character.
Turns out that she's like Ellie all along.
There's always a lighthouse.
Oh my god.
That's what they're talking about, finding the light. That's what they're talking
Fireflies
about.
are just trying to find the lighthouse. Way to turn my conversation.
I know you were going in a serious place. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, just like, how did you guys react to that when you saw that was the story that they were telling? The fact that Lev is a transgendered character. Did any of you think that they were overhanded on it? Because I read a couple things that people were not completely happy with it, but I also saw some people that were actually pretty excited that they even to be seen at all.
I was so excited. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was done really well. I think that's kind of going back to what we were talking about, just representation in general. I feel like all of it was done very well, and it never felt, like I said, like it never felt forced, and everything felt natural. Like, and that includes Lev. So
I was worried, like they shout out the name and they kind of talk about it, and I was worried that was going to be it. But then when they have a conversation about it later, and they committed to it being like a full part of the story, right?
Yeah.
And it, I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. Like I anybody that wants to kind of throw that away, like the truth is just like, we're all around you, queer people are everywhere, and their stories never get told, and it's so exciting that this one was brave enough to try and tell that story, to try and incorporate it into a very difficult situation. And it's a difficult story to tell, and I know to me, you can always tell if the story is like completely written without the any inclination from like a trans person that had any input on it, or was at least asked like, hey, do you think this is okay? This to me felt more appropriate. It felt more like that some care and thought went into this,
including the main actor that played the character as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Ian something.
Alexander.
I think that might be right.
Yeah, and then him being able to have his story, and then go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with everyone else. I think like Lev is like easily one of the most, like, alongside Ellie and Abby, like one of the most fully fleshed out characters. And I think from even just from purely the representation standpoint, I think of just having this like a trans character having such a key part of the story and being such a big presence in it. And again, I know there's been a lot of conversations about Lev. And again, I think as a cishet person, like I can't necessarily speak to sort of that aspect of the character. But I think Lev was easily one of my favorite parts of the game, and I think a really interesting character in in his own right. And I think the only thing really with Lev's storyline that I wish that they explored a little more was just the whole thing with him going back and killing, him having to end up killing his mother. I feel like that was a little glossed over, like kind of was like it just felt like, but because it happened off screen, it just felt like it should have had a bigger impact on the story than it did. But other than that, I think he was Lev was a really interesting character, and I really think one of the best parts of the game.
Yeah, other than the setup that Yara was like, oh my god, my mom's gonna kill him. Well,
I never really understood. We never really understood that though, because it was all like,
well, if you take
it was all told to us secondhand. Like we never got an actual idea of like who this mother character is and how she actually behaves.
She's devout,
But she's devout, though. If you take it in context of religion, and then someone is not matching with your ideals, you get antsy about it. So
I know people who are devout in their religions who, again, this brings it back to being a death cult. The fact that she would like want to murder Lev for that.
It's the same people when they stone people. Go ahead, sorry.
My assumption was just that she would behave the way all the other Seraphites would toward you.
Yeah.
That it was kind of like she would go with the hive mind, not really.
Yeah, I think for herself. With me, I think that and that's probably what would happen. I think it just kind of lost its impact by just kind of being.
Totally, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Just showing up in the aftermath of it. Yeah, to mimic what everybody else has said, I just thought it was really like sewn into the narrative in a natural way. It just didn't feel like I feel like I keep bringing up Avengers whenever we talk to you. Maybe the Avengers films are bad, Alex, actually. But I'm bringing up another. I'm bringing up another one, like when at the end of Avengers Endgame, when all the women group up and they all start walking together, and it's a wide shot of them all going to fight. And it's like, all right, I see exactly what is happening in this scene here. It's just like it never felt like they were. It never felt like their decision to make Love a trans character was just like, oh, we need to put a transgender character in this game. What should we do? It just felt like somebody came up with an idea and they're like, hey, I think this would fit well into the story we're trying to tell. And I think that this would tie some things together narratively for us. And it did.
Yeah. So into the religion and the things that he would end up doing if he proceeded to go his direction with the religion, I thought was interesting. So,
yeah.
I think the two, one other, we're going to get to the end game to this conversation, but first, the one thing I did want to talk about is that the game does have a lot of flashbacks.
The end game when Ellie gets all the Infinity Stones. And
Yes, when she gets that, that's the true end game of Last of Us.
She snaps Tommy's eye back into his head.
She's like, oh, I can't snap now. I got no fingers. What was your favorite in terms of the... so let's just talk about like the birthday. What did you guys enjoy about the birthday scene specifically? Because it's so much, and that is what Left Behind brought in, that I was very much happy that they were able not so much replicate, because I think there's a lot of special moments in the Left Behind
Is
DLC.
that the museum?
That's the museum part where you go to both space and dinosaurs. How many Jurassic Park references did you love that Joel kept spouting
All
out?
of them.
I love specifically the part where he talked about there was like a sequel to the movie but it wasn't as good to the first one. I laughed so hard when
Yeah.
I love it because I know that compy scene so fucking well.
Yeah.
And him referencing it specifically, I was like, hell yeah, I fucking love Jurassic Park 2. Let's go. He's like, was this good? I was like, you're dead to me, Joel.
I love they had Joel, which was Troy Baker, doing a Jeff Goldblum impression, because he does the that's a big pile of shit line if you do all the like putting the hats on shit. I thought that was pretty great.
Yeah, I think if I went back and played the game again, like that's the scene I would probably go back to and just like mess around and just see what, because like having to rush through the game, I kind of had to miss a lot of the key parts of that scene, but I think it still was like obviously like I think one of the best scenes.
Yeah. Oh, and pro tip: put the hat on 2 dinosaurs and then put it on Joel. You get a trophy.
I didn't put it on Joel. I'm so pissed.
He just walks around with it looking like a dork.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Do a plant run.
Yeah.
I like that scene a lot. I was really, I mean, this shows how stupid my brain is sometimes. When he pulled out the cassette out of his front pocket when they were in the thing, I was like, Joel, how did you keep that from getting wet? You guys just swam in a river a second ago. That cassette is destroyed. This isn't gonna work.
It was stashed in the museum.
That's right.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Don't ruin my birthday scene, Logan.
I'm on a motherfucking dinosaur.
I mean, it was just like, that's where my brain goes. That's how stupid I am. It's like these very sweet moments. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up here.
How many people climbed the dinosaur?
Oh, is that an option?
Yes.
To not do it?
Yes. My friend Frank didn't do it.
I just naturally climbed it right away.
Yeah, I was like, wait, can I climb on this dinosaur? That was the first thing I did. Why would you not? I don't know.
Apparently Frank didn't think it was a thing and he walked right past it. And I'm like,
I play idiot games. I know when they're telling me I can climb up a mountainside or a dinosaur's back.
I've watched the Flintstones. I've always wanted to slide down a dinosaur tail. So
yeah, no, for sure. My friend missed it, and he also didn't even know that Lev was a different type of character either. So he's oblivious.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Just send him a strongly worded email. You know?
I had to. I actually explained it to him. I'm like, dude, you serious? It's like, all right. So let's go ahead and get to the end. Let's get to the farm. Unless you want to talk about the beach. Do you want to talk about the beach? Do you even care about talking about that part?
What beach?
Where they had that final confrontation.
Princess Beach.
Princess Beach.
I'll be your Princess Beach.
That's right.
And then you get up and you walk out of your house and you die. That's how Death Stranding ends, y'all. I said there would be spoilers. God, what an incredible game.
Let's talk about Death Stranding for a second, because I love Death Stranding so much.
Can you believe somebody greenlit that?
Remember the part where it turns into a fighting game? That was freaking awesome.
That was fucking awesome.
Actually, part of the Ellie. I mean, we'll get into it. The Ellie Abby fight in the beach.
Yes.
Like I did.
Very-
the Death Stranding fight.
Very Death Stranding, Metal Gear Solid 4.
The Metal Gear Solid 4. Yeah, that was the other
Yeah.
one. that I
Yep.
liked too.
That's awesome. What did you think of obviously Ellie letting Abby go?
I mean, yeah. She makes it. I don't understand. I mean, I did go as far to say people who want her to kill Abby at the end of the game don't understand the game. Like,
Yeah,
simple as that. It doesn't make any logical sense in my brain why you would want this character that you supposedly love to go beyond themselves and do something that you know is not good for them to probably do.
Yeah.
I think that was after that. Then they showed the flashback about how Ellie is going to try to forgive Joel,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right after that.
I think,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of like encapsulates that scene of like, oh, this is why, kind of like Ellie is like, well, maybe I don't murder this person in cold blood like a monster, and maybe I, stand away, and I think that and I think those two scenes kind of go hand in hand. I don't think you can ever like really explain that part without that flashback. And I mean, it makes sense. I don't know why you would with that. I don't know why you would want to.
Because you're a
Ellie
monster.
Kill.
You just want her to kill thing. My thing is, and I'll talk about this because we actually didn't talk about it the entire conversation here. The through line to the game for me is the Future Days song by Pearl Jam, where it's surely that line that Joel just sings right at the beginning, where he just says like, "If I ever was to lose you, I surely lose myself." But that line alone to me is the log line to the whole game. Eventually, she suffers the loss of Joel. She goes through on this journey and murders every single person that she possibly can, only to get to the very end and try to complete what she thought was the end of her story. And she decides not to, and decides to not lose herself, to give herself some humanity. That's just how I pictured it, personally. That's my
Do you
thematic
think
brain.
I mean, do you think that's a theme? Do you think that song is a theme for the whole game, or do you think it's just for
because they
Ellie?
play it. If you play something more than 3 times, it's a theme in your game.
I mean, it's the refrain between her and Joel specifically. Every time she plays it, Joel pops back up.
I feel like it's more of very much tied to just Ellie and not much to Abby, because Abby.
Well, no, I'm saying Ellie's story, not Abby. Ellie's story is her ending is to kill Abby, but she decides not to.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And therefore, she goes back home. Granted, she's already lost so much. She's lost Deena. She's lost her finger. She can't even play the song anymore. That to me is the.
But like I said, that's going to get fixed. That's going to be no problem.
Yeah, we're gonna get those metal fingers.
We're gonna get those
It's
metal
like
fingers. We're gonna be
2040
good.
in this universe.
Yeah, Tony Iommi exists in this universe.
Have you seen the
Oh my
Lena
god!
battle?
What if they
Angel?
find his corpse and just take it straight from him?
PlayStation Vita, then you could probably get metal fingers.
Yeah,
If the PlayStation Vita batteries have not burned out in the year 2040,
How did she
Okay,
find a memory
you'll
card?
probably get metal fingers.
How did she find a memory card? How did she download that game on there? Because you can only download that game.
I mean, that would it might have just been a crapshoot.
Just went to the
Had to
GameStop.
play whatever's on the card.
Yeah, exactly. She found a Vita, and you're just gonna play whatever the hell's on there.
Yeah, she stopped at Greg Miller's house and got Vita from there.
That giant box of Vitas that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had. No, I'm not gonna make that joke.
Turns out it's Vita Island.
That's where they go. They go to Vita Island at the end of the game. Fucking Catalina wine mixer.
Also, I mean, this is completely separate, but how is the island where the Space Needle is?
I don't know. I don't know.
I haven't brought this up.
I don't know geography.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how Seattle is geographically mapped out. But when I got there and they're like, the Space Needle's right there, I was like,
It's been flooded for some reason.
I did think about that. I was like, I don't know if that's where that is. But
Just keep in mind, like when you're going toward the aquarium, you're going downhill, and it's flooded. And
Yeah.
the island is further west than that. So if there was like a bridge to another like low to the ocean level like ground, then it could have all been sunk.
Okay, so I am looking at a map of Seattle, and so if
Mario, put a map in front of Seattle from this.
So if Interstate 5 from there on was kind of flooded a bit, it could make it could definitely make an island.
In a car going 250 miles per hour west.
Ellie's on a boat going the
San
opposite
Francisco going 350 miles north. At what point would they intersect? Anyway,
Getting to the slap happy part of this.
All right, I'm gonna rush. I'm gonna go to the end, which the end basically to me was Ellie goes back to the farm. By the way, there was a farm scene. She goes back to the farm. Everything is gone. All her shit's in one room, and she plays the guitar and fails.
I think it's that room was left untouched.
Yes,
is no one went in there.
She tries to play the guitar, fails to do so because she doesn't have her middle fingers yet.
I think to simply say that the ending is just like that. I think there's just so many layers to it. Right?
Like your camera.
It's not.
You're so dark right now. It's scared the crap out of me.
Oh, I am. It's probably because I don't have this white. I have like a document here as my light, because this blank document here is my light because I don't have good lighting.
Podcasting with Shadow Man from Dreamcast.
I just think there's so many layers to like the themes of these stories and how it ends. I don't think it's just about Ellie kind of losing herself and that through line for that. It's like a tale of revenge and stuff like that. It's also a tale of redemption because of Abby's story. There's also a tale of forgiveness. There's like a ton of threads, which I think in some ways, I think it, for me, I really like it, but I think in some ways it could kind of get lost in that way and could kind of not come, like, it might not feel as powerful to some people, I think, because it's like splitting away from there's so many different things and so many different layers to it that, you know, it's a lot to take in and kind of just like, I'm still like thinking about this game, and I think for the most part, like, I think I really like how they stuck the landing, and it was really told effectively for me, but I could see why someone would not like this, because there's so much, and sometimes some of them don't feel like it was given the same care as other parts of the story and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It's just, there's so much about it. Like there's a lot of threads there that maybe some aren't as well told as others, but
I'm right here, Mike.
Really
you can look at me in the eye when
Alex. No, but I mean, I think I do like understand that, and I do see that for sure. Like, it's not lost on me that like I think there's like total pacing issues and stuff like that. For me personally, like, I think I really really enjoy it. It's for sure, but
I really get why. I get why this story would connect with people. And it's funny because like I feel like Nier Automata does a lot of similar things as far as like trying to tell a story from multiple perspectives. Mm-hmm. And I also didn't like Nier Automata, so like yeah, so you know, it could be something with the storytelling. It could be something with how they approach the drama or how they approach the characters. But it built and built and built to the point where it broke. And then everything falls apart from there. But I am also like pretty exhausted with kind of how Sony's first party games approach a very similar formula, and I'm also pretty exhausted of like apocalyptica and depressing stories.
Sure.
So there's a lot playing against The Last of Us for me, especially going back to the first one.
You could blame the first one.
Yeah, feeling a lot less good about the first one too, and feeling like the ending was more comical and less believable than I had first remembered. And then this whole game hinging on the end of that game that I now feel a more complicated way about. Just, it was like, okay, this is exactly what I didn't want. I wanted something to take me off the ending of like, now we're going to thrust these characters into a whole different direction that's going to have them deal with this shit, but it's not going to hinge so much on the ending. So
yeah, I think going into like seeing that there was going to be another Last of Us, I would have assumed that there would have been like just totally different characters. Like Ellie and Joel had their adventure. Okay, so now let's talk about these other characters and this whole other story within this world of like the Fireflies or something like that, whether that be before Joel and Ellie's story or after it or whatever.
And that's part of why, like, when we get to Abby and we switch to her perspective, I was so stoked, because I was like, this is kind of what I wanted, of like, let's just really try and approach a different story. And then when it had to be intertwined with Ellie's and it had to put those stories opposed to one another, I think that's where my problems started to happen, right?
And
that's why I like Abby's story mostly, because it is so independent of everything else, right? Like, it generally has nothing to do with anything else until the end of year 3.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. I liked that momentum. Once everything came back together, I was like out again. I was divested again.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you have any final thoughts on Last of Us, or Last of Us on the ending?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think overall the end. I mean, because I've seen like a lot of people say that they feel like the whole Santa Barbara thing feels like a little bit like an unnecessary sort of like, you know, side trip, and like I guess in some way I can kind of see it, especially because of the game being so long. Like, you know, yeah, maybe there were some sections that could have been tightened up, but I do think that like the way that the ending ties everything back together to sort of like, you know, was Ellie's sort of, you know, were Ellie's decisions, you know, justified, or, you know, should she have taken these actions? Like, I think the ending really sort of tied that up for me really well, and especially I forget what happens, but with the whole like, you know, Joel, like her willing to forgive Joel, I think just those, like the way that the story presented those things and did all that in the ending, I think really you know, tied the game together pretty well for me.
Very well said. Logan, do you have any final things you want to talk about for The Last of Us?
If they make a part 3, the symbol on the box should be Ellie holding up the only 3 fingers she's got left.
Like Left 4 Dead, like
Left 4 Dead, exactly. That's all I've got.
If they make a part 3, I'm out.
You're fucking killing me. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you and I already talked about this, Alex, but yeah, like, please, God, don't do part 3. And that's not even because I dislike part 2. It's just, I mean, they can try to prove me wrong, maybe, and it'll be a good game, but I really cannot think of where they go from here.
Like I said, I think if they did a quote unquote part 3 or a third game, I think it should just totally be different, just a totally different set of characters.
And then in that case, it just shouldn't even be part 3. It should just be the last
subcolon something. Yeah.
No, I think that I think there's definitely a way that they could make it sort of like an anthology type thing where they follow like different story, you know, different characters. And
which I'd be more interested in. I would play that, honestly.
Yeah, because I think that world is really cool and interesting, and seeing that there's like a bunch of different other factions and stuff like that, like in each.
Like a Lost Legacy style. If you promised me it was going to be less than 8 hours and it was The Last of Us, I would say yes. Like I swear, if he said it was short, I would take it.
Maybe it'd be interesting if they did, like, you know, maybe more of like a, I guess like the best way to put it is like a short story type of thing, where maybe it's like, you know, like a collection of different like 1 hour sort of stories.
Like do you guys remember The Walking Dead 500 Days or 400 Days?
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, something like that.
That'd be cool.
That would be awesome. I guess like one final thought. I guess like my final thoughts on like The Last of Us Part 2 is that like I agree that I am not one for long video games. I think I wrote a whole thing about how video games are too long, but I think this game is very long. Yeah, but every time I went to go play it, or anytime I ended a play session, I always kept on thinking about it. And that hasn't been something that nothing has really compelled me that much, like this generation, as much as like The Last of Us Part 2. Like I was never really like, oh, I need to see the ending of this game for a lot of games this generation. Where this one, it was like super long, but at the very least, I always felt like I wanted to see what was happening. So I don't know. I think this is probably like one of my favorite games this gen, but that's something where it's just like, I don't know. I really have to, I'm still sulking in it, still trying to figure it all out. So
Mario,
just complex game.
Yeah.
Sorry, mine was a joke, so it's even ruder that I interrupted. Mario, I also didn't like God of War 2018. So like, listen, I'm not winning any favors today.
What games do you like? You Persona 5
Persona 5 Royale.
That's Stranding. We already talked about.
That's right. That's Stranding. That's right. It's a great game.
I do like that.
I love Death Stranding.
Not amazing, but it is great, I think.
Nah, that's fine. That's fine.
I think if God of War 2018 didn't have the part where you murdered a dragon like 5 hours in, I would have been out of it.
Fucking rad. I guess I would say that my final thoughts of this game is, like I said, it to me was a reflection of what I experienced 7 years ago. To have that come back and have these conversations again with those same people that got me my PS3, got me to play Last of Us, that got me excited in the first place, to actually have these conversations about how they feel and how we hope and pray that there's a multiplayer down the road. Because to me,
said there would be, right?
Something like that. And Druckmann didn't say no when Greg brought it up.
Yeah, they didn't say no.
So I'm hoping, only because
It's coming.
it's the closest thing that I got to Last of. It's the closest. Shut your goddamn
I don't
mouth.
want.
Hold on.
I have.
I'm muting you. Can I mute
opinions
you?
about factions? All right.
I'm in Mario.
Thank you, because it's the closest I've got to the Walking Dead comic book in terms of experience of, like, my friends were the other survivors and were getting and trying to circumvent the enemy. You know, that was my go-to when I played, and I played for many hours on the PS3 originally. My friends would actually stop playing their PS4 version just to play with me on PS3. That's how freaking cool they were. So with that and the story that I wasn't expecting that I was getting, and to me got me very much interested into rewatching a lot of revenge stories. Actually, like, Mike, we're gonna do that thing for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna do that thing.
I want to talk about the Park Chan-wook series of movies. But ultimately, I love these characters, even with their terrible decisions that they make, and I feel that in this game that they did a good job of explaining where they would lead up in the end of this one, and where they potentially could go. I know you guys been doing your little jokey 500 days or whatever the crap. Actually, real quick before I talk about that, this game scared me a little bit because I love Walking Dead Season 1. 100% love that game. One of the best games I've ever played. Season 2 begins a lot like this one, where it's like snowy and you go to a resort and someone dies. Like, I was like, ugh. Like, I was scared there was going to be too much comparisons to this game, because the last one had a lot of comparisons to the Walking Dead game. But to where this game could potentially lead to, and as much as it's like kind of like on the nose, Abby, from what you see at the end of the loading screen, you actually see Catalina Island. She goes back to the Fireflies. I mean, at any point she could let slip that Ellie's still out there, and that she has a vague idea of where to find her.
Did she go to the Fireflies? I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like that
That's
it was
what
all a
happens.
trap.
The new menu screen's kind of meant to imply that, I think,
Yeah.
into the game. She got there.
Neil confirmed that that's Catalina Island.
I hope they were all there. I don't like fireflies.
The Catalina wine mixer.
Fucking Catalina wine
What
mixer.
are they mixing over there on Catalina Island?
Wine, I
Firefly
guess.
juice. All right. Well, I think that unless Logan, did you say already? I'm sorry, it's been so long.
I said my piece, yeah.
Said your
I
piece?
said the dumb finger joke.
That's right. Thanks for that. Thanks for taking this serious.
We
Logan.
didn't talk about the hospital at all, but it was sick.
It's the hospital.
Sick,
Oh,
sick AF.
My favorite Resident Evil game of the year.
Yeah, it was dope. It was the Ishimura section in Dead Space 2. It was so dope.
I was not happy about that. I was like, no, not something gross and
Maximum spooky.
oh, it was spooky. I hope Alex will meal.
Oh, the inside thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Rat King. It's called the
Yes.
Rat King, by the way.
Yeah, the Rat King.
That's the inside blob is in the game.
He ripped my body apart multiple times.
Dude, it's
not
so
fun.
vicious and gross, and it was unnecessary. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all of our thoughts that we have about The Last of Us Part 2 for now, until we
Wait,
decide.
for now. What?
Yeah, we're gonna have some more in a few weeks. We're gonna reconvene.
That's right. Every month we're having
I'm
it
not
a
going to be
weekly.
invited that time, so it'll be more positive.
Give me Scott instead.
I don't think he likes it either.
Wait, really? Nice. I guess.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, I gotta talk to my boy.
I think he was saying he didn't like it. So I mean,
It's my boy.
Well, thank you so much for dealing with the 5 of us for the last hour and 40 minutes. Thank you so much for giving a chance and listening to us talk. Of course, you can find all of our content at DualShockers at DualShockers.com, where some of these lovely boys are writing articles and maintaining there. So thank you so much. Screw you, Mike. Alex, of course. Alex, where can we actually find you? I didn't actually mention at the top of the show because I'm a bad host. Can you tell us where you come from?
Where'd you come from, Alex?
Asshole that they just had on this podcast to shit on my favorite video game ever made. I'm the host of Irrational Passions podcast. It's
Never
a video game podcast. Yeah, you probably haven't, honestly. It's a video game podcast that is on irrationalpassions.com, a website that's 10 years old now. So just go home and think about that. And I am on Twitter at Alfighter27. I take selfies a lot. I cook a lot, and I like being positive. I promise. Sometimes I don't like things. I try and be honest with myself about that. But usually I'm more positive than this.
I don't feel like you were a downer.
I
was more of a downer than you potentially.
I try and always be like as level-headed with my critiques as possible. So hopefully I did all right.
And everything you said, I thought was fair. So, you know.
So all the comments that say I was unfair, you fucking listen to Mario.
Oh boy. Logan, where can people find you on the internet? What are you doing these days? What are you writing? What you got? You got anything cooked up? Nothing you talk about? Nothing?
Not really.
Check in next week when we
Tsushima I am reviewing, so that'll be the next one. Looking for what's up with me getting we're talking about all these how this game is long. I've reviewed Death Stranding, which was a 40-hour walking game, and now I'm gonna have to review probably a 40-hour open world samurai game.
Every fight is slow.
You're the reviews editor. You're the one, you assign it yourself.
I know. I don't even get it. I gotta go buy it myself too.
Oh, that means I gotta buy it too. All right, continue.
Yeah, we all do gotta buy it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Buying a video game. Wow, what a travesty.
I know.
What a terrible thing that has happened.
Yes.
I don't know. That would be the next big thing, I think, on the horizon that we'll probably talk about in some respect, because it's the last really big game, I feel like, before the fall season. It's the last big PS4 game, yeah. And then it's the last really, I can't think of anything else that comes out really major before October. This fall is still weird. We don't even, where the hell's
Call of Duty? Yeah.
Avengers, come on, dude. Avengers.
Are we going to team up in Avengers? Please tell me we're going to team up in Avengers.
I'm gonna be a Hulk man. I can't wait.
I'm going to be a Thor man.
I'm going to be Captain America man. Oh, wait, that guy's supposed to be canonically dead in that game for some stupid ass reason.
Wait till half the game and you find out he's cryogenically frozen again.
That MODOK, I didn't actually kill him. I have a large head and I want the chamber.
I can't believe MODOK is in that game.
I'm so happy that he's the first villain.
The best.
Other than that, you can find me at Moreman12 over on Twitter. I probably got my profile privated right now, so send me a follow request.
Good, send all your hate that way. Ryan, where can people find you? And are you working on anything special?
So you can find me at DualShockers. You can find me on Twitter. It's just my name at Ryan Meitzler. I have a couple Last of Us features I'm working on, so you'll probably see some of those coming up soon.
Very nice, very nice. And Michael, where are you gonna exist now?
So I guess you can find me on Twitter at the Michael Ruiz, but I don't really want your follows. You shouldn't follow me anyway, because I don't do shit anyway. So fuck you. Get out of my face. No.
Dropping the mic.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna be doing some stuff.
Yes, you will.
Super Ruse Radio, bring it back.
No. We're not doing that ever again.
Can you co-host Beneath the Pixel?
That was like 7 years ago. I can't believe that.
That was like 7 years ago. I haven't known you for 7 years.
Oh no, that would have been. There's too many projects I've done and failed. So thanks for bringing up my failures. That's really great.
You don't want to bring back Reeling in the Years? Such a great podcast about music of musicians that die.
I found the intro video for that. I thought it was really good looking. But anyway, yeah, you can find me. I'll have some stuff on DualShockers.com for the next month, and honestly, I'll probably be around for some other video stuff and whatnot.
Who's going to go to WWE events with me?
No one.
Ricky is. Yeah, not
There's no fans at the WWE's right now.
I hear
Yeah,
Rick
no one's-
Moranis is free. You know, he's not doing a lot of work right now. So.
But yeah, I'll have some stuff on DualShockers.com. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll probably say something stupid. And I don't know. We'll see.
You're my favorite little boy, Mike. I'm glad that I'm gonna rope you in the still.
I guess this is my. Is this my last? No, this is not my last.
No,
I'll
you're
say
not. No,
something.
you're gonna come back. I'm gonna ask you to come back
Yeah.
every time I can.
Yeah.
So
He'll be back on next week.
Yeah, I'll be on next week. So
we need someone to
Never
talk
mind.
about the Fighter Pass, and we can't fit enough people. So you gotta be on the Fighter Pass. Class.
Fighter Pass.
Yeah, the season 2 pass
For Smash Brothers?
For Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Midman's
Talk
out,
to me.
bro.
I don't like Smash Brothers.
All right, then you're uninvited. Then Jesus, I'm trying to give you a job.
We're talking about Midman. What are you saying?
Can we put Big B Wolf in the game?
Tell me if they Big B Wolf.
Why are you in this podcast or this video or whatever the heck we're doing?
Anyways, thank you again so much. Please, if you can leave a like or follow here, actually at our YouTube, subscribe for youtube.com/DualShockers, where I post all the videos I just did. The review for Last of Us a week later. The reviews reflect that, but please watch it. I really enjoyed making that. It was a labor of love. I try to bring life to Ryan's words as I spoke them.
That was awesome.
Doing many takes. Yeah, exactly. Again, thank you so much. And until next time, remember, you're not the Last of Us. Part 2. Ah! This one was falling and dying.
The whole podcast.